If we only use Smash as the end-all be-all to boss design, I'd be a little disappointed. Most of their intrigue comes from the notoriety of the games they come from, and some of the big set pieces built on the story that was progressed. The interactions with the characters are something different. They're some of the most memorable things that you could probably ever see from Nintendo. But the actual bosses are bare bones. This is some of the most lukewarm gaming experiences that I've ever seen. And the fact that it only got a little better after 2 other games, the one I'm talking about being Smash Ultimate, that seems a little fucked up. But this all doesn't make any sense without context. So let's get into the why, and also maybe how maybe we could do this better. Alright, so let's look at Subspace's bosses first. Most of them, even the final one, lacks feedback for the player. Not that it doesn't take damage, but the fact that for the most part, they don't really sell hits. Maybe at the halfway point, at most. But most of the time, they just do repetitive attacks and super armor through your attacks, making fights feel lifeless. Not only that, but you kind of decentivize the one thing that even the most casual of casual person would want, which is to perform combos. Like, because a lot of these bosses don't have hit stun, there's almost no reason to want to perform combos and go into it. Like, why would a casual want to feel the satisfaction of chaining combos together to kill the opponent when simply back airing 7 times with no regard for what the game is enough to get the job done? Hell, why do anything different in your playstyle when doing the same thing over and over again does the job? Like, seriously, even if you were mediocre at the game and you were playing the story mode, there's like no reason for you to ever do anything else than the strategy that you've been doing at the start. There's no reason to bob and weave. There's no reason to like put some space up with your blaster or like use your sword as spacing. There's no reason to do anything different from the start all the way to the end. You want to forward air the boss like 7 times? Cool, the game incentivizes it. There's no reason for you not to. And that's pretty much all in like Subspace. But what about Smash Ultimate? Well, Smash Ultimate is a little better. But that's only because the bosses are based on good boss design. So each of these bosses were actually taken from other bosses previously from other games, as you already know. But in those games, there is a reason or reasoning as to why they are built the way that they are built that way. And most of them have like a body part that they have to get hit by to take damage. That's a little better. So rather than doing 7 back airs to any sort of part of the boss, you'll do it in its face. Which some of you might think is okay, but I'll just be honest, if this sort of thing was in like Hollow Knight, yeah, you would call it one of the worst bosses in the game. And the reason why is because it's lacking in like depth. And usually I would love to say that Rivals killed it in that aspect, but it's a little more to it than that. Like, sure, the final boss is a lot better than most of what Smash usually does. But again, that's not saying much in general. The boss may react to your attacks, does attacks that promote you to use like defensive options like parrying when you can, and doesn't just do single attacks you just dodge. Like, you can actually go up, and if you're aggressive enough, then you can actually make it work to your advantage. And because a lot of the attacks track you, being on your toes and using these defensive options is actually a must. So you're promoted into doing something different rather than going in, performing 3 back airs, then coming out if need to, and then rinse, repeat. I think there is one concept that's missing from this though, and that's the free form combos. Like, you could say that hitting the eye over and over again in specific ways, you know, is good enough in combos, which I could see, but I think it could be way better than what it entailed. So, thank goodness Workshop exists. What is good game design? Wow, I didn't think that fucking sentence would be ever said in any age ever. The combo routes that you can do on him, especially with a friend, is very satisfying. And it's because this sort of boss has the hit stun in order to make it satisfying. It's kind of like traditional fighting games. Most of the other bosses that just have super armor and just do a lot of damage and just do all these sort of things are boring, unsatisfying, and are not memorable unless they're the very first bosses to ever exist ever. But it's only when these bosses kind of act like fighting game characters, where there's hit stun, you can combo them, you can do sort of play styles against them. That's the only time that these sort of bosses become like memorable. And again, he actually sells the hit when you do it. He spirals out of control. He basically is setting you up where you can do another combo against them. It's like you can use so many defensive and offensive mechanics when you fight against this sort of boss. It's not just super arming through your attacks like every single other fighting game boss has ever done for the past, what, 10, 15 years? It's something that is actually becoming something more. And I really hope that we can take that sort of game design and that happens for not just Rivals 2, but for any other platform fighter. In fact, fuck even that. How about we do that to every single other fighting game ever? Just have them experience a boss that is not just a numbers and super armor game. Have it be enjoyable. Have it be an experience that can last like a lifetime. Because let me tell you something. The only way for a fighting game in order to be comparable to something like Hollow Knight, to something like Breath of the Wild, as some of the best games of all time, is to give that single player experience that people are craving for and have been craving for the past decade. I think we should take a look at what makes, maybe not even just platform fighters, but in general, what can make a fighter just enjoyable to play as, where it's not just a fighting game for competitive sake anymore. It's trying to give an experience for players to go for. So hopefully, Dan can keep his promise.